Harry Kewell, great to have you on board. I'm in Malaysia right now, so we're currently 7 hours ahead. You are in England, I believe.
Yes, I'm in my home, in my house in Manchester. So nice to see you, Adam.
Very, very good to see you as well. It's been a few months. We caught up at Anfield not too long ago. And the most important question I'm going to ask today is, how are you doing?
We are fine. Look, obviously with what's going on in the world, it's scary. But as a family, we've just followed the government rules. We've been in lockdown. My wife goes out to get the fruit and the veg and all the shopping, and I'm stuck at home doing the homeschooling.
You're doing the homeschooling?
Well, you know what? It's actually not bad. I mean, I'm the maths teacher. My Cherie's the English teacher, and my son and my other eldest daughter, they help out as well. But it's actually nice because you kind of forget the basics of maths. But then when you're doing it with like Dolly now, you kind of just regrouping, recapping on what you kind of missed out on. So long division, multiplications, divisions, subtractions, fractions, I know them all now. It just refreshed my mind. So I'm all up to speed now.
Out of interest, and I hadn't prepared this question, but since you brought it up, did you have a lot of education in terms of the traditional sense of education whilst you were a youth player in the system?
We had there was a program that we had to do. I can't remember what it was called. It was once a week. We had to do schooling. But again, it's very tough to get a group of players to, stop doing something that they love and to put them back into a classroom, because we're young players that all we want to do is run around the park and learn our trade and become professional footballers. And then we got brought back in. I mean, look, the fun thing is we actually had a good teacher. So we were kind of lucky. We were kind of the last kind of school that we actually had a good teacher where it kind of helped us in certain ways, where he just wanted to play football as well.
Yeah.
So, and then I think after our year had finished, that schooling, they really knuckled down and became very strict on education, especially for footballers. And I think it's changed now. But to be honest, even now, even with my kids coming up now, I still make them do their education, because even though they want to have a dream and do something, they've still got to be able to have something to fall back on just in case.
Yeah. Well, in fact, I mean, I went to your Instagram, I saw you put a picture of your son. It kind of made me feel a bit old, because I still remember you as, tearing it down the wing, etc. And you have a kid that's probably taller than me, definitely taller than me, because I'm very short.
He's 6'4", nearly 6'5".
There you go.
I don't even know where he's got the height from. And he tells me every single day. Every day he comes up to me, he looks down at me going, "Hey, Dad." I was like, what?
You're feeding him food which is far too good for him, I reckon.
Well, I actually said that to him yesterday. I said, look, I mean, feeding you too good, or you're resting too much. That's why you're growing all the time. So get out there and work. Yeah,
certainly the case. And switching it back to football a bit, I mean, I know a lot of your ex-teammates personally now. I've spoken to most of them. Dominic Matteo. I had a recent conversation with Robbie Keane via this application as well. Danny Mills, all these ex-Leeds boys. Nigel Martin, for example. And I think I can safely say we are all excited for the return of the Premier League. What about yourself?
Look, I can't wait. I'm not going to lie. I started watching the retro games. That's how much I was missing football. And then obviously when the Bundesliga started, I was watching that because I never really watched the Bundesliga. And now I've been watching that. It's nice. It's nice to see sports coming back. I mean, even the golf was on last night, so it was a nice chance to just sit back and watch a live event. I think what they've done over the last few months is it's been like obviously tough on everybody, but it's nice to be able to look forward and to see the Premier League kick-starting again.
All right. Well, in terms of predictions, now I love Conor McGregor, and he's known for making his predictions. If you follow UFC at all, Mystic Mag is what he calls himself. So I'm going to try it with you, see how much of a Nostradamus you are. What are your predictions for the rest of the season, with the exception of Liverpool winning the title? Who's going to get the Champions League spots? Who's going to be relegated? I think those are the key stories right now.
Well, everyone's got an opinion, and this is only my opinion, right? I think there's only going to be one change to the top table. I think City will be there. I think Leicester will hold on to it. I just don't know whether Chelsea will. I got a feeling United will sneak that position. I think they're only 3 points behind Chelsea. I just think with Pogba coming back, and everyone's raving. I think he will have a point to prove. Look, if it doesn't go well for him, I think that would be the end. But I think he's the type of character that will stand up to all this kind of noise that's been masked about him. I think he'll stand up and be counted for. And I just think that with Rashford back as well, I just think they'll have that little bit more for Chelsea. I mean, look, don't get me wrong. What Frank Lampard's done for Chelsea is phenomenal. And you know what? If I was sitting in his position, I would have been asking the Premier League to finish. So, you know, they could end up in the Champions League because personally, I didn't think he would be there. Not this time. Maybe next year once he got a few more of his own players. I think it's wonderful what he's done with Mount, Tammy Abraham, and the other young players that he's brought through. I just think United will push. You know, I just think they will push for this position, and I think that's the only one that I'm debating. Not really debating. I just think United will take it.
Mouth-watering to see how he's going to work with Bruno Fernandes, who's really a shining light for them this season.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, we've heard reports. We've been reading reports that, you know, Pogba is going to play in the number 10 and Fernandes is just going to play in that holding role. But Bruno loves playing in that number 10 role, and that's where he's most dangerous. You know, who's going to be taking the free kicks? Because they're both, you know, free kick specialists. Look, if these two can kind of work together and get the best, they're going to have an incredible midfielder. Because I'm a big fan of McTominay as well. I think he's a fantastic player. And then you look at that midfield, it's pretty daunting. You got Pogba, who's tall. You got McTominay, who's tall. And you got Fernandes, who's all of them are quality on the ball. I just think they're gonna surprise a few people. I believe.
I think a lot of people will be in agreement with you right there. But who's been your player of the season? Who are you going to put up as a candidate for this?
There's only one player, Mane.
Sadio Mane for you?
Yeah, Sadio Mane for me. He's the only player for me. And don't get me wrong, he's had to work very hard, right, to get to where he's got to. But even for me, like, I always knew he was a special player. But when you talk about players progressing, and you look at the likes of let's just take the best players, Lionel Messi and Ronaldo, they've always progressed. You know, when you look at other great players that have played, they've progressed and then they've dropped. They've progressed and dropped. Whereas Mane just seems to be just plugging away. And this season for me, he's been phenomenal. He's been phenomenal. He's been for me, Mo Salah has been the talisman for the last couple of years. And I think Mane's kind of lived in his shadow, but he's had that respect, you know. And I just think this year he's taken it now. He's taken the throne, and which is fantastic because that's made a little bit of a competition now to Salah to kind of go past him again. And if they can kind of get that connection, wow, it's just going to be unbelievable. And they both have for me, a wonderful player that plays alongside of Firmino, where I think he just gets the best out of both of them. He kind of supports them to unbelievable, which allows me to turn around and say Mane is by far the best player in the Premier League at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, because a lot of people are saying Jordan Henderson.
As a leader, yes, there's no question about it. And let's not go back. Was it last year when he wasn't playing? And I remember watching the game where they played at Southampton, and it was 0-0. They were losing 1-0, and I think he came on and he turned the game just with his hard work and good work ethic. And that from then he's just blown away. Like, he has just gone to another level himself. But no, Mane for me. Even though, like I said, Jordan's been a fantastic leader and he's controlling that team, and he's got wonderful people beside him as well, like Van Dijk and Milner. But like I said, I don't get excited by a lot of people watching football. You know, it's got to have to be something special. But when I watch Mane now, it gets exciting because you just don't know what he's going to do.
Yeah. This is going to sound silly, but another thing I'm looking forward to is seeing the lockdown quarantine hairstyles, because we saw the training pictures. Mane's hair, well, it was interesting. Let's put it that way.
What is it? It was Dortmund, like Jordan Sancho and all that, got fined for getting his haircut. So
exactly.
we're going to see a couple of rough people out there. But come on, man, it's not about your hairstyle. You know, just go out there, get your 2 wins, and then you know what? We'll get haircutters. We'll get the hairdresser to come in there and give you a little shape up and all what you want. Then after that, just concentrate on these next 2 games.
Very true. I actually mentioned, speaking of hairstyles, oddly enough, to a friend of mine earlier today. I said, I'm interviewing Harry Kewell. And he said he had the best hairstyles. His hairstyles were stunning.
I had every kind of hairstyle that you can imagine. And if you actually look back, I even had blue hair in one game.
Really?
I had blue hair in one game. It just ran out a little bit the night before, but it was lightly blue. I had
Which
blue,
club?
I had red, Leeds.
It was at Leeds. Okay, yeah. Double checking.
Leeds, yeah.
Wasn't.
Yeah, no,
All
it was
right.
Leeds. So I had blue hair, red head, skinhead, long hair, top knots, double knots, every knot, sideward, bleach blonde, everything.
I like the top knot. That's just my personal favorite because I can't grow it like that. That's it.
I tell you one person. You know one person that didn't like the top knot?
Who?
Benitez.
Really?
Nah. Every day he'd come to me, cut your hair.
Cut your hair.
Yeah.
And
but don't get me wrong, other people had long hair in the team. He just always come up to me, cut your hair. And one day I cut my hair. He came up to me and said, "Good haircut."
Not bad. All right. Managers are invested in hairstyles, I guess. The positives of Liverpool are one thing, but what about the negatives of the Premier League? I mean, who's been your disappointment of the season? I'm going to throw out my name and say Roberto, the goalkeeper at West Ham, who I think we can safely say was not up to Premier League standards.
Look, I think it's very harsh to pick out players because, you know, it's a team game. And yes, you can pick out, okay, it's West Ham. Well, then, you know, let's look at the back four. Why aren't the back four defending well? Okay. Well, let's look at the midfield. Why aren't the midfield controlling the ball and even helping out defending? Well, hang on a second. Why aren't the strikers even scoring to lay that pressure off him? If a keeper keeps getting pounded and pounded and pounded, eventually, you know what? It's like that old saying, a striker could miss 9 glorious chances but score 1. A keeper could save 9 unbelievable saves and let 1 in, and who will get the headlines? The striker, because he won the game. So I as a disappointment, I wouldn't pick out an individual. This may shock you, but I'm going to say Tottenham, Spurs. I think they've shocked me because to be in the Champions League final, right? To have built that stadium, to have a world-class manager, and then obviously lose that manager, obviously get rid of that manager. Don't get me wrong, they bring in another world-class manager, but 2 managers that have completely kind of different ideas of the game of football, and then wanting to rebuild and all that. I just think for Spurs to be second, like in the final of the Champions League, always pushing in them leagues and not even be kind of close now to getting into, you know, the Champions League, for me, that's a disappointment because they're such a wonderful club. They've got some fantastic players. And they say they can't draw too many great players, but they have wonderful players. They've let go of Eriksen, which is disappointing because I thought he was an unbelievable player. But like I said, if Harry Kane doesn't play, what kind of force they have? And if Son's not firing, what kind of force do they have? So I just think for me, it's just going to take time. And I just think if you look at a disappointing thing for me this year, it's probably Spurs.
Yeah. Well, I can completely agree with that because I'm a Spurs supporter. So
yeah,
your assessment kind of justifies how I'm feeling as well. What about reflecting back on your career during your time? I mean, we talked about individual players, who's been great this season, etc. Who was the most influential player that you ever played alongside that you would always want to go into battle with, no matter where you are?
I'm going to have to say probably the best player like I love to play with. And, you know, I admired him because he wasn't out there. He just stuck to what he stuck to. He was a home bird. He turned up to training, did his work. Yeah, he had a laugh, he had a joke. But when it came to football, he was very professional and done his job properly. He never looked to over-elaborate in his passing. He never looked to do something that was out of his depth. Yeah, don't get me wrong, in training, he would do something to make people laugh and all that. But when it came to a game, he was serious. And that's got to be David Batty. Like I said, the way again, I think people take for granted, you know, they're always looking at someone to do something special, you know, to make that 70-yard pass, you know, to do a little flick or a little trick. But the hardest thing in football is not to give the ball away. You know, if we look at the likes of Iniesta and Xavi and all that, and you'd heard stories when Henry was there, is that if you weren't on their team in possession, you wouldn't touch the ball. You know, and even when I coach now, I try to inflict this kind of saying into my players to say, well, don't give the ball away in training and come to a weekend, what will you do? you won't give it away because it's part of it. And that's what David Batty did. He never gave the ball away. He always played it simple. Don't get me wrong. When there was a pass that had to be done, he'll do it. But he did his job. He stopped the counter-attack. He got the ball. He gave it to someone that could do something about it. And then he filled in the gaps. And then when there was a challenge needed to be done, the challenge had to be done. So he was a player for me that I could rely on, that I wouldn't, when I was playing, I didn't have to worry about, you know. Not that he was, didn't have to worry about because he was an England international anyway. But like for me, I just knew that if the ball come to him at any height, he'd control it and lay it off. You know, he wouldn't make a mistake. You know, and they're the type of players I loved. And for me, he was the best one.
And from what I've heard from his ex-teammates, he's someone who just, after training's done, he's just going to go home. And now he's just disappeared off the face of the earth. Like, no one can contact him.
He was, and you know, I even spent a bit of time close to Bats because, don't get me wrong, my first encounter with Bats, he cut my upper lip in a game. Yeah, a nice little elbow across there like that. And I remember the first time he had signed for Leeds because he come from Newcastle. And I said, "Hey, Bats, how are you?" He says, "Yeah, I'm good." I said, "Do you remember the first time like we encountered?" He goes, "No." I said, "Oh, you split my lip. You know, I had to have, I think, 2 or 3 stitches." He just said, and just walked off. I just went, okay. I said, "Oh, okay." But like I said, that's him. And, you know, I respect that. I respect that.
That's someone you played alongside. Is there anybody you played against and you just thought to yourself, as you were standing on the pitch or you're walking down the tunnel, I want to play with this person, but it never came to fruition?
The Premier League has been graced with a lot of talented players. You know, you look at even to the back when they started bringing the players like Ruud Gullit. You know, you got Zola. You know, you got Eric Cantona. You know, you got Bergkamp. You know, you've got all these players that have graced it and done something magical in the game. And growing up, and because I started early, I had a chance to play with these kind of players just before the back end of their career, or played against them. Sorry, you know, I got a picture of, you know, me tussling with Zola when Zola's on my back. You know, I got another one of me jumping for a corner and Teddy Sheringham's, you know, challenging me. You know, so I've been blessed to have, you know, been on the pitch with some of these great players. But one stands out, you know, and I think he's probably one of the best players to have played in the Premier League. And I did have an opportunity to play in the team, but I chose to play for Liverpool. He's probably Henry. I think the way I played, because even when we kind of challenged each other, you know, it always brought the best out of the two teams. You know, we were challenging. So, but the way I played and the way he played, I would have liked to have seen what the link up could have been like.
Yeah.
So that's something that I would have liked to have seen.
I think a lot of fans would as well. I've only got about 2 minutes.
Not you though.
Well,
Spurs fan.
I've always had a soft spot for Leeds. I've worked with too many of the ex-Leeds boys not to have a soft spot. If he ever played for Leeds. But I've got about 2 minutes left, so I have a quick game to play with you. I'm going to name a teammate. Just tell me the first thing that comes to your mind when I say their name. Are you ready for this?
Yes.
Mark Viduka.
Relaxed.
James Milner.
I have to say ambitious.
Steven Gerrard.
Leader.
Jamie Carragher.
A lot of words, but I have to say determined.
Fernando Torres.
Powerful.
Sami Hyypiä.
Professional.
Xabi Alonso.
What's the word I was looking for? I'd have to say intelligence for the, intelligence for the game.
Yeah. And finally, Harry Kewell.
I thought about this one. Unemployed.
I love your honesty. I think I got 1 minute left. So I just want to get a message from you, because I think this is really important in the climate that we're living in right now. And I've read up on some interviews of you, and you've talked about some of the issues mentally that you are going through because of your injuries and I guess your future, etc. So how important is mental health? And for those that perhaps are going through something tough, what advice do you have for them to come through it stronger?
Look, it's everyone goes through problems, and I don't think you can compare one problem to someone else's problem, because everyone deals with it in a different way. I can only speak through the experience that I had through the problems that I had when I played the game, where, you know, you're getting told that you're never going to play again, you know, to fighting back, to having one person in your corner fighting for you, which is your family, saying, nah, don't listen to them. You got to fight this. I think the most important thing is for a guy, and it's very hard for a guy, is to speak about it, because we're so macho and we're so, hey, we don't have no problems. You know, I'm the alpha male. I've got to look after my family. My problems don't matter. And I think that's the problem. I think that everyone does have a problem, and I think you've got to be able to speak about it. And and if you can't speak to your family or even your wife, if you can speak to someone and get it off your chest, I think then it just starts that chance for you to opening up and allowing you to kind of speak about your own problems. And then, you know, it's that old saying, you know, more heads are better than one. You know, the more you speak about it, there's other people in your situation. And if you don't speak about it, you're going to hold it in there, and you can get dragged down, like I did, into a pit where you just don't think you can get out of. But you just got to speak about it and be confident about it. And like I said, just don't worry. You know, don't worry about what other people say, because it's not worth it. You just got to get yourself right.
I really appreciate you saying that, because obviously you are someone that many people look up to even now. And I think maybe if just one person can be helped by your words, then I think it's definitely a good message to get across.
Oh, well, thank you, Adam. I appreciate that.
Thank you so much for taking the time. This has honestly been one of the most fun conversations I've had. I really hope we can repeat this one day. And all the best to you.
Cheers. Thank you. Cheers. Bye-bye.
Bye.